Alright guys, welcome back to DCS World. I'm Spudknocker, as always. And I am super excited, because today I can finally bring you guys my first impressions and thoughts on the newly released DCS Kola Map from Orbx. Now for those of you guys out there that don't know, Orbx is a very well established terrain creator for the Microsoft Flight Simulator series. And I was very excited and curious to see how those skills would transfer over when MSFS and DCS are such different products and programs whose underlying framework is so very different. So I have spent all morning flying around the map and gathering up some footage for you guys to enjoy while I give you my first impressions and thoughts and as to whether or not you should spend your hard-earned dollars on this new addition to our favorite game. Right off the bat here, I wanted to let you all know that I spent my own money on the map, and it was not given to me by Orbx, even though they did graciously offer it, and I want to thank them for their fantastic offer. Let's start off by going over all of the positives, and then we'll head to some more of the negatives, and we'll finish off with kind of a rounding out and bottom line as to whether or not this map is for you. First off, Kola is a green map, and the community has been shouting from the rooftops about how they wanted more than desert sand to fly over for quite a while now for the modern jets. I personally love the desert maps, but it might be a bit of a personal bias growing up and living in the California desert and on desert islands in the Caribbean, so I tend to like that dry desert aesthetic. But man, Orbx sure has given you green, green, and more green, that's for sure. The only brown you're going to see on this map is on the tall mountain peaks that line the massive Norwegian fjords along the western area of the map, or if you decide to put a brown skin on your jet. It's my belief these fjords are going to become a DCS fan favorite location. They'll make the perfect place for Russian backfires and fencers to hide on their attack runs to hit the NATO fighter base at Bodo, and provide shelter to American carrier battle groups from Soviet and Russian submarines, and provide a picturesque background for learning how to fly your favorite new module in any kind of scenario. In the far east of the map, we have the infamous Soviet submarine base at Polyarny, where countless sailors on all sides played their dangerous game, and played it well, and where Captain Marko Ramius began his perilous journey to the west to prevent the Soviets from gaining a first strike weapon after the tragic and senseless loss of his wife at the hands of the Soviet medical system. These submarine pens and shipyards are populated by beautiful models of Delta-class SSBNs, Alpha and Akula-class SSNs, and numerous commercial and military surface vessels, both in dry dock and at their moorings. All of them beautiful, juicy targets waiting to be hit by all manner of air-delivered high explosives. To the south, we have the northern edge of Karelia, the focal point of the winter war between the Finns and Soviets, and the later continuation war in which the Finns allied with Nazi Germany to finally expel the communists from their ancestral lands, leading to a mutual distrust between Finland and the Soviet Union post-war that persists to this day, and is one of the main driving factors by pushing Finland into NATO after the start of the war in Ukraine. This area is marked by flat, low-lying forested swamps and lakes, whose soft and muddy ground during the summertime is nearly impenetrable by mechanized forces on either the red or the blue side, leading to a playground for sneaky Apache pilots to creep up on the enemy, or Hind pilots to burst through the front like a couple of linebackers. This is also where we find the first of several Finnish Air Force road bases that will be added to the map along with some Swedish road bases. I'm sure we've all seen the dramatic and awesome footage of FAF FA-18Cs and Ds taking off and landing in lashing snow along these narrow highways. There's no other experience in DCS like taking off from the road base and finding the endless sea of forests and lakes sprawling out around you. The Kola Peninsula, while being thoroughly green across the board, offers a number of very unique landscapes that all lend to different ways to fly and fight for both our fixed-wing and rotary-wing brothers and sisters. It's my opinion that this map offers everything that South Atlantic offers, but does it better, and gives players what they have always wanted: a place to play out World War III between the East and West, and allow DCS World to have its Red Storm Rising moment in an area of the world that would be center stage, and not a backwater like the Caucasus, and of course on a scale worthy of such a conflict. So we're now done with the good, let's talk about the bad and the ugly. So we know this map is released into early access, and I highly commend the effort that Orbx made in jumping into DCS from MSFS, and I sincerely hope that more companies follow suit. But there are some things that I think need some work and some fleshing out. The shelters at Bodo, for instance, the major NATO air fighter base on the map, need some work on their 3D models and textures, and the floor of these shelters are dirt instead of concrete in game, leading to needing some extra thrust to taxi out of the shelter. This was a bit more of an annoyance and a game-breaking bug, but it did make me think the F-16C now hot-started with the parking brake on. I think some more clutter and equipment scattered around the air bases would also go a long way to making the map feel more alive and populated. Admittedly though, Ugra Media did set this bar unbelievably high on the still new Sinai map. I also hope that Orbx comes back to do some additional passes on the transition between water and land around the oceans and the many lakes and rivers across the map. These transitions are a bit harsh at the moment, but this is a bit of a legacy issue with DCS. However, the water line on Syria and Marianas looks pretty awesome, so it is possible. However, I do have to acknowledge that the transition between water and land on the previously mentioned Sinai map that set a really high bar is the same as it appears here on Kola. Outside of the officially finished and fleshed out areas of the map, we can also see a lot of starkly contrasting textures between forested and grassland areas, moving into city and town textures. But I would assume these will get another pass because inside the finished area, these are much nicer and much smoother transitions. We also have to contend with the fact that while everyone says they want more green maps, DCS World has legacy issues with trees and forests spawning around your aircraft and popping in and out as you adjust your zoom and field of view in-game. This is of course not true on just Kola, but also on all of the World War II maps, South Atlantic, Caucasus, and the western portion of the Syria map. I have chatted with members of the ED team about this, and I do really hope that it gets worked on soon. It seems like we should just have another slider in our graphic options for that, but I'm sure it's a bit more complex than just slapping that into the game. Of course, this issue is far less noticeable when you aren't looking for it, and when you're task saturated with aviating, navigating, communicating, and fighting in your Tomcat or Apache, you really won't see it at all. Finally, and last note on the negative here, the number of airfields is a bit sparse, and they're all quite far from each other. But this should be remedied soon when more are added in subsequent updates. But in the meantime, I really love flying long-range missions anyway. So what's the bottom line here? Should you get the map? My answer to that is yes, absolutely. But understand it is early access. This map is really everything the DCS World community has wanted for a long time now. It's green, and it's World War III against the Soviets or Russians, and it's set to get even better in the near term, and I believe more airfields are set to be added in the upcoming June update. I also believe it was an incredibly smart move for Orbx to partner up with Reflected and Baltic Dragon to get extremely high quality single player content out there for the map as quickly as possible for the two most popular aircraft in DCS, the F-16C Viper and FA-18C Hornet. So you really won't be waiting around forever for content like we did with Syria and currently are for Sinai or South Atlantic. So while the map is a bit undercooked at first upon early access release in my opinion, its future content prospects and update roadmap are the best we've seen from a third-party map creator. So hopefully with this map in hand, this business will get out of control and you'll be lucky enough to live through it. Happy hunting guys, and enjoy this beautiful map if it's for you.